Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. It's Friday, so it's PowerPoint Day. This one's called No Cosmos, No Apple Pie. One of my favorite ideas to have the simplest thing you could conceive of, an apple pie. Well, first you have to have a planet that makes apple trees, and then you have to have people who figured out through generations which foods you can eat, which foods are poisonous, how to mill grain, how to use fire to transform things. But yet, before that, you have to have a planet that produces all those things for people to discover that. And as you know, the planet doesn't just appear out of nowhere in a vacuum. It's part of the solar system, and the solar system is part of the galaxy, and the galaxy is part of one of the local universes, and so forth. And without that, you can't have this. So if there's no cosmos, no apple pie. So that's the first thing, is to get our perspective shifted to understand how we're connected to everything. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have this common thing. But we're living in a time of the collapse of what I call the sacred canopy. We're in the terminal moraine of all the mythologies that used to work for people. They don't work for us anymore. Like an avatar, the tree of life has been infected toxically. Now, part of what I do is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And that's what the doctrine is supposed to do. Give you hope when there's no hope, and also tear away the false hope so you realize that it's up to you. You got to clear the mud off the needle for the magnet to attract. That's called purification. Otherwise, the two polarities won't create the magnetism. So you have to find your balance between the two opposites. Oh, like in Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You know, they were all searching for something. They lacked brains, they lacked courage, they lacked heart. And what the wizard did, even though he was a phony, was he affirmed their potential. So I love this one from the pharmacological drug test results. Our trial showed that the new drug performs no better than the placebo. Oh, maybe we should invest in placebos. Well, like when you come to the yoga class, if the yoga teacher said, you don't need any help from me, just live your spiritual truth, you say, what a charlatan this guy is. So just like when you go to the doctor and you expect a prescription or a diagnosis, and then they give you the medicine, and then they say, come back in 3 weeks, and then you have the relationship with the doctor, and then after a while, the doctor says, all right, now you're on your own, come back in 6 months, the leash gets bigger. So just like that in yoga, you go from the prescription, do this, to the relationship that you have with the teacher, the personal responsibility where you're on your own. You have to take care of yourself. Now, yoga is a huge toolkit, spiritual apothecary, I call it. It gives you know-how, it gives you the knowledge, it empowers you, it inspires you, and then you aspire. You see the possibility of the success as reflected in your teacher, and then, like we say in Chicago, I want to be like Mike, and you start to do it yourself. The important thing is to learn how to self-actualize. You say a willow tree planted by the river, almost 100% chance of self-actualization. Planted by the desert, not so much. So you have to find the right environment where you can thrive. And of course, the whole idea is to get centered. Otherwise, you wobble when you walk, and then your perspective is tilted, off kilter. And one of the things you learn in this path is everybody's wounded, everybody's scarred, and you can't get that fixed. Your brokenness can't be fixed, but it can be blessed. And that's the idea of one generation recognizing, giving good advice to help integrate the buffetings that we all face. It's a rugged process, and nobody gets through without getting some kind of scar. But as my teacher would say, you yourself don't know what you're capable of. So even if you have some major impact to your health or your body or your psychology, maybe it can't be overcome, but it can't be transformed. And you say, I'm not going to quit. If that means you got to do hurdle jumping, even though you only have one leg, it can be done. So our body potential is the unused capital. It's untested. We don't take ourselves to the max to find out what we're capable of, find the stage appropriate technique, mostly because of fear. What will happen if? The bad story you tell yourself, the story you tell yourself of the bad thing that would happen. But you have to realize, and we all have some strange part of ourselves, but your eccentricity might be more important than your centricity. because society is concentric, but the individual is eccentric. So can you keep your eccentricity there? Because your vibe is going to attract your tribe. Life says take a risk. Death says play it safe. That's a switch on it, right? Normally you think that life says play it safe. And death is where you risk. It's the exact opposite. So remember that spirituality is the bouquet of natural life, not a supernatural grace added unto it. Love the embodied form. Love the fact that you're here at all. And then remember, every house is wired for electricity, but you have to call the power company to tell them to turn it on. So you have spirituality in your genes, but free will is there if you want to turn your attention away from that. No one's going to force you to do this. You have to invoke its presence if you want to evoke a response. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. I hope to see you next week. Remember, the next Good Vibrations class is coming up on the 17th. The title is Yoga, Escape into Life. Don't forget to subscribe, GabrielHalpern.com. Let me know how I'm doing. Ask for a free CD or anything else. I love to have dialogue with